welcome back to Madness in the Method, the podcast where we talk about Nicolas Cage and his prolific career, one movie at a time. My name is Tobias, and with me as always is my friend and trusted co-host, Christopher.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And in today's episode, we are talking about the 1999 Martin Scorsese directed Bringing Out the Dead. A movie about an EMT, what do you call it? EMT driver?
Well, I think it is called just EMT.
Yeah, an EMT. All right, yeah, that's an abbreviation, right? An EMT in the early '90s in New York City, kind of strung out during 3 nights of his very hectic work. Of course, starring Nicolas Cage as the aforementioned EMT. I mean, that's it, really. There's not really a plot. It's very character-driven, so there's not much more to say, really.
I mean, the thing worth mentioning is that he is either just before or right after he has become burned out.
Oh, yes. And he's increasingly burning out during the movie.
Yeah. Because when the movie starts, it's really... He's not in a good place at the beginning of the movie at all. And it's not getting better.
Yeah, and there's a short voiceover in the beginning where he talks about he hasn't saved a single life in like 6 months or something.
No.
And it's really starting to wear on him. Is that long even? Yeah, maybe it is.
I think so. I'm not sure, but it's quite a while.
Wow. And yeah, like we said, this is a Martin Scorsese movie, and one I hadn't seen before.
No.
And even though I'm a big Martin Scorsese fan, it feels like, everyone has seen all his movies, but he has a bunch of movies that, people don't usually talk about, and this is one of them.
Yeah. What did you think before you watched it? What was your impression of it?
I had no impression at all, actually. I knew of the movie. And the only reason I hadn't watched it was because it didn't feel like, the kind of Scorsese movie the kind of movie that Scorsese made in the 90s. So for some reason I just I'll watch it later, and then it never happened. So I really had I thought it was going to be more of a drama. Mm-hmm. More in line with maybe movies like Silence, which is a more, understated, slow-moving movie. That was not the case, though. Having seen it now, it's very much a Scorsese movie. In the style of his earlier and later movies.
You went into the movie thinking you would like it, at least, because it is a Scorsese movie.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've never seen a Scorsese movie I don't like. I've liked them to varying degrees, but I've never seen one that was like, oh, this is bad.
You like Cape Fear?
Oh yeah, I love Cape Fear.
Really?
I think it's amazing. Yeah, it's awesome.
Fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's going to be the, I guess, quote-unquote controversial take today, is that you're not the biggest Scorsese fan?
No. I mean, he has made some good movies, but I'm not... It's not that I haven't regret watching any of his movies, but sure. I don't really have a need to watch them again, and they really quickly disappear from my mind after I watch them. They don't really leave an impression.
Sure.
And I think for one, that's I think the most controversial opinion in this episode. I think Taxi Driver isn't that good of a movie.
I have recently discovered the same thing. I think it's a bit what do you call it?
Overhyped.
Overhyped, yeah. There's definite things I definitely like about it, but there are structural problems with it first and foremost.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The same. As I said, Cape Fear's not a movie I really I like at all. I think Shutter Island is pretty mediocre. I mean, he's throughout. There's a lot of movies that I don't like about him, or about him that he made.
Yeah, sure.
But on the other hand, I think Goodfellas is one of the greatest movies ever made. So I mean, it's up and down.
I mean, the ones that have become classics they're classics for a reason. I mean, they're fucking amazing.
Yeah. So I don't hate the guy. I'm just not the biggest fan.
Sure.
I think he's a very hit and miss director.
Yeah, and I would say they're all hits to like I said, to varying degrees. I'm also not the biggest fan of Shutter Island, but I've only seen it once, I think. So
yeah, me too. I've seen the movies I've seen with him, except I think Wolf of Wall Street and Goodfellas. I think that all other movies I've only seen them once.
Okay.
And never really went back to them.
But what did you think of Bringing Out the Dead?
So I had seen this movie before.
Oh,
this was not the first time I saw it. I saw this a while back when I was like a teenager, because based on the trailer or the cover, because I saw this on VHS.
Yeah.
No, I saw it on TV, but there was a trailer on TV that this is a movie that's going to be on Friday. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I was prepared for it. And the reason I saw it, because that trailer made it look like sort of a supernatural ghost movie.
Okay, yeah.
So I went in with a completely different mindset. And I remember it being good but weird, and I didn't really get it. Again, I was like a teenager, and this is really not a movie I really could comprehend, I think. Just the concept of burnout didn't really exist, so... So I remember it was weird but good. And this time when I saw it, it was now when I actually could comprehend what it was about. I think it was a pretty good movie. It's a strong movie. I don't think it's gonna be one of those I rewatch. So it's gonna be in the category of good movies that I won't watch again. But I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, and I agree. I definitely liked it. But it's one of those movies that upon watching it, I have to say I don't really understand exactly what it's about. Like when the ending happens, when the credits roll, I'm like, what was it really about? Not like I'm questioning whether or not the movie is pointless, because there's obviously like there's a point to it. There's a story being told. I just don't get it.
So it's not the same as, because you said almost exactly the same thing with Super 8.
Yeah, there's just like what's the point? There's nothing happens, Okay, that's the other version of it. Here it's me who's not comprehending the movie.
So you see that there is a point, you just don't understand it, sort of.
Yeah. Right. That happens from time to time. The last time it happened was with the Charlie Kaufman movie, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It came out a couple of years ago, like Christmas 2020 or something. I watched that with my mom, and we both were like, it was good, but I didn't get it. And even after like rewatching it and like watching analyses of it, it was like, oh, but then you're always going to be that. Then my initial reaction was going to be like, I didn't get it though, so maybe it's not really my kind of movie. And I think this is going to be the same thing for this movie. That even like, because I have done some research now since watching it, and it's like, all right, I get it better now, but it's still, my initial thoughts on it is going to be that I didn't quite get it, so maybe it's not really for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't watched any analysis at all about it, but I think I get it. Well, at least not all of it, but some of it at least.
I got some of it, definitely.
Because I think this movie is, because there's this thing that he says a few times, I think, through the movie. This thing of Red going deep in analysis. Are we there already?
Yeah, sure.
So he says that this thing that he believes that helping others will help himself. This thing that he is not a person who I wouldn't say depression, but he doesn't feel good about himself or anything really in his life. But when he saves a life, when he saves someone, he gets this high, which makes him being able to live to the next one, the next high, sort of. So he lives high to high, and now he's in this rut where he doesn't get this high, and that's why he more or less his life becomes real. He sees what it is, this just coming home in the morning, drinking, not being able to sleep and then getting up again and going to work, and it's just this whole dredge where he has nothing really to live for except this high.
And he's not even receiving the high anymore. So
So now it's
becoming unbearable.
Yeah, he's sort of finding that this life isn't a life worth living, and he, as he says, he tries to get fired because he can't really quit himself because he's still sort of a junkie for the high, so he can't. Really,
exactly. Yeah.
He can't bring himself to actually take that step to get away from it, but he's sort of trying to get fired instead by coming late and things like that.
Yeah.
And then there's this movie. It is definitely a slice of life movie. You don't really get a proper beginning or a proper ending.
No, there is no plot. There is none.
Yeah,
it's just 3 days of work for him.
Yeah, but it is during these 3 days what happens when he meets this. What is she called?
Mary.
Mary, yeah, Mary.
Played by his then wife, Patricia Arquette.
Oh, I didn't know they were married when this movie was made.
Yeah.
But then he meets Mary, and he sort of finds a glimmer of what life could be, and sort of getting this not chance, but this glimmer of I should work on myself instead of just others. I should take control of my life and actually try to build a life instead of just living high to high. Sort of. And then also we have, because during these 3 days he changes partners.
Yeah.
And those 3 partners that he gets, they all sort of give him advice and examples of ways to live.
Although some of them, or maybe even all 3 of them, also being like they're not healthy people, mentally healthy people. None of them.
But they have ways to handle it that isn't just high to high.
Yeah, sure.
So John Goodman's character Larry, he lives for the future. That this is just something he does now. He's gonna do something later. This is not his life. This is
just a paycheck.
Yeah, it's a paycheck until he can actually get to the place where he wants to be in life.
Yeah.
And then we have Tom Sizemore, Tom Wolves.
Tom Wool, yeah, Wolves.
Yeah. And he sort of lives in a way of, it's hard to explain, but angrily.
Yeah, definitely.
But he has some sort of, I wouldn't say hero complex, but some kind of living that just him doing his best will make a difference. It would change things. Yeah. And he sort of takes the law in his own hands and try to. At the core of his being, he tries to make the streets safer and better, even though he goes the completely wrong way of doing it.
Yeah, I would almost say that he's having the same problems as Frank, Nicolas Cage's character, but he deals with them in a much more aggressive, like outward-facing way instead of going inward. Like he beats people up instead, and like attacks the people they're supposed to save.
Yeah.
Because he has that same, like, that's the problem they all have. Because there was one left. Go ahead, talk about him.
Yeah. So then there's Wing Rhames, Marcus, who goes through. He has found God, and he does this through God and his faith, and that because I guess these 3 people, they show how they deal with failing, with not saving people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which Nicolas Cage character Frank Pierce, he can't handle it. He doesn't know how to handle not saving people.
Yeah.
And Marcus, he goes through, this is God's will. If I didn't save someone, I did what God wanted me to do.
Yeah, which is perfectly like shown in when they meet the pregnant lady, or the lady who's in labor.
Oh yeah.
And she's giving birth to twins. One of them lives, one of them dies, and he sees it as something good. We saved the child, while Frank is like, yeah, but one of them died. Like, yeah, but they could have both died because they were in a crack den. We saved one at least.
So there's this thing of him not being able to handle failure, and these characters is ways for him to handle it. But at the end, well, the way I interpret it, at the end he rejects all those sides and decides there are more than this job. There is more to life. There is going another way. With Mary then, and I think that's sort of the point of the movie, in a way.
Yeah, I saw it as the thing the point I got to was that he is trying to control what is like out of his control, and that's why he's constantly failing. Like he even contemplates that when he starts seeing the ghosts of people who are dead, like he might even know that they're already dead, even though he keeps trying to save them, because that's what he does. That's what he's supposed to do, or he thinks he's supposed to do it, even though he has a choice to not do it. And then ultimately, through the course of these 3 days, seeing how other people handle it, or we see how other people handle it. He just hasn't seen it before, I suppose. And then meeting Ruth, not Ruth, Ruth? No, Mary, sorry. I don't know where Ruth came from. Mary. He realizes that it's maybe better to try not control things that are like outside of your grasp. Yeah. Which is then kind of emblematic in the fact that the first person they save in the movie, Mary's father, who is basically dead. His brain hasn't had any oxygen for 10 minutes when they get to him. So he's literally brain dead. Yeah. But they still get a pulse going, and they get him into the hospital. And over the course of these 3 days, he keeps going back to visit him and visit Mary. And we do see that there is some brain function, but the doctors have to like constantly bring him back to life. Like 17 times they have to resuscitate him. And whenever he wakes up, he's in like severe pain because, all the stuff going into him. So when then, in the end, spoilers, I suppose, he realizes maybe I wasn't actually supposed to save this one, and he was in more pain alive than he is dead. So he unhooks him basically, and lets him die. Kind of like letting go, like of this what perceived control he has over life and death, and like just accepts his fate basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of a symbolism of letting go of his responsibility. It's not. Yeah, he doesn't need to save everyone.
Yeah, it's not actually his responsibility. He wanted to make it his, but it isn't really his. And it also, the way he says it in the movie, like we're more. He says we're not really there to save people. We're more there to give witness. Like, as in 90% of the cases, they don't save people. They just bring down dead people. They bring out the dead, as the saying goes. And the title of the movie. So it's an interesting movie, and that's as far as I got. But I think there's more. There might not be more to it, but it feels like there's more to it. There feels like it's more to it. And at least I feel like I'm missing something, but maybe I'm not. And then it's still a good movie. But
yeah, and it does feel like it is one of those movies where I think this is one of those movies I think that could mean a lot for certain people. If you see this movie in the right where you need it, because there's a lot of things to take away from it, of just letting go and not having the responsibility of the world on your shoulder and living outside of your job, and all of these things are very human things that people fall into these traps. And I think this movie sort of speaks to them. So if you don't need it, I think that's what you're feeling, that you don't get it, because you don't really need that where you are in life right now. And I think that's sort of the movie, that it is for those people who need it, sort of.
Yeah, and that's a sign of great art, that it's very subjective.
Oh, definitely.
So,
yeah, it is. Yeah, this is definitely art. This movie, definitely.
Yeah, it goes beyond just entertainment. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone will just hang out in the couch with some popcorn to watch this movie.
No.
It's not one of those movies.
It's not really a fun movie to watch, even though there is some humor in it. It's not fun. It's pitch black. I described it on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
It's like not fun at all. So even I rewatched it once. I was like, do I really want to? But I guess I have to, since we're recording this a week late. So I had to refresh my memory. It's like, ugh, I don't really want to.
Because I watched this last week, and I was thinking I want to watch it again, but then no, I don't. No,
I don't need this in my life.
Yeah.
But let's talk. We mentioned some of the. There's not a lot of like characters in the movie. They're there for like certain parts of the movie, but the only characters that are like in the entire movie, it feels kind of like, is Nicolas Cage and Patricia Arquette. The other ones kind of come and go. I mean, even Patricia Arquette kind of comes and goes throughout the movie. But I think like everyone, even like the smaller roles, like Mark Anthony, gives amazing performances in this movie. Like, there's no one bad, really.
No, everyone in this movie is great, really. Except the people who is like extras. Obviously.
But yeah, sure, because they're not supposed to act; they're supposed to be there. Yeah. But I mean, everyone that has like a speaking role is really good.
Yeah.
But that's a staple of Martin Scorsese movies. He knows how to pick his actors.
Oh yeah.
Which is then interesting that he picked Nicolas Cage for this movie, because it's someone he likes to work with the same people over and over again, and here he picked a completely new actor that he hadn't worked with before, and put him in this like in the starring role of a movie where he is really the center of attention all the time. And for some reason, it's like, I need Nicolas Cage here. Which is interesting, because he does a phenomenal job, I think.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what do you think of his performance?
It's great. It's understated in a way, but at the same time, it's Nicolas Cage, so it's very, 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 very big as well. But he's not like... He is understated when he has to be, and then he's very animated when he has to be. I think he balances it very, very well. It's just, I guess, something we're discovering more and more as we're progressing through this podcast. Like, he really knows what he's doing when he's acting. Sometimes maybe, but like 90% of the time, he really knows what he's doing. Even when like the directors are like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yes, it's gonna work," and then it does.
Yeah. So I watched. I sent it to you. I don't know if you watched it. This big analysis video of Nicolas Cage.
I watched a part of it, but I mean it's this big video. It's like 3 hours long.
Yeah, it's like 3 hours and 20 minutes or something. It's
huge. I think I watched like the first 40 minutes, and then he started like spoiling things, and I was like, I don't want to watch this.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to get things spoiled.
But there was a lot of interesting things to be said just about Nicolas Cage career, or his that there is a red line through his career that we haven't really talked about, and I don't think I even thought about it before, but that he sort of picks sort of the same role, that he always picks a person who sort of stands up for what is right and is not maybe the underdog, but he is either he is an underdog or he stands up for underdogs, and that's sort of every role he has.
Well, not every role.
No, not every role, but sort of. I mean, if we just watch, if we just look back at the last movies that he has, like Super 8, he's this detective who stands up for this one victim that nobody stands up for.
Sure, yeah.
Snake Eyes, he this thing of this murder, and everyone, not everyone, but his friend is sort of just let it go, take the money, don't
and he
investigate.
Decides to do the right thing and protect the only other person who wants to do the right thing. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and City of Angels, he's not a hero in that, it's not a hero movie, but again, he is sort of the underdog. He's an angel who decides to fall for love, and he rejects the way of being that everyone else is going through, because he is sort of an underdog in that sense. Face Off is weird because he sort of plays a different character, but again, he is the good guy who has all odds stacked against him. And yeah, and you can just go through every movie and sort of. There's some examples like when he plays like the bad guy, sure.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that stick out then, because he's not very sympathetic in Deadfall.
No, but there are these movies. The only movies that he plays a bad guy is these movies that we said when we review them so far, at least, is the movies where he goes, yeah, I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna do something that I don't usually do, like in Deadpool.
Sure, yeah.
I'm gonna go all out. Yeah. I'm not able to do that in other movies, and then he takes this role. But other than that, in his quote unquote real roles, he sort of gravitates to the same kind of character, even though it's a huge range for that character.
Yeah,
And I think that's pretty interesting, and it's again in this movie, same thing.
Yeah, and as far as I got in the video, talking about like his style of acting, that he like the guy, whoever, what was the guy who made the video? What was his name?
I don't even remember actually. It was just.
Either way, the guy, whatever. He mentions like nowadays.
The channel is called In Praise of Shadows.
Right, that was one, because I have watched things he's done before, but I hadn't seen that video. Yeah, In Praise of Shadows. Look him up. Good YouTuber. Yeah,
very good channel.
But he talks about like how most actors nowadays, and the most like popular style of acting nowadays is the more natural style, like trying to capture realism. While Nicolas Cage has always been more of a performer more than an actor. I think he even uses that description that he's not acting, he's performing.
He said in several interviews that he dislikes the term of actor.
Yeah.
Because acting is lying, and he's not lying, he's performing art.
Yeah. So. Which is true. And I mean it makes sense, like, and I think we without using those words, kind of have been talking about that in his act, well, I guess in his performing, I'm going to say it that way. So I found that interesting, that he himself has like said like there's a reason why I quote unquote act the way I do, because it's more of a performance act. Yeah. So I like that aspect of the video, that he acknowledges it himself, but that it's a conscious choice. And I think that's also something we have noticed. Like he makes conscious choices that other people might not agree with, but in the end, like he never, like, his performances are never bad. I mean, except for the one time he didn't care, which is, of course, Firebirds. We're always going to come back to Firebirds, where he did not give a fuck. But other than that,
yeah, and he talks about that too. About now we're sort of just rehashing this video, but it's interesting. Yeah, it has a part of this podcast. It is the Nicolas Cage podcast.
Yes, exactly. We have to discuss the stuff we find out about Nicolas Cage.
And that's a thing that it's also very interesting regarding this performance versus realism. That all roles where we have been sort of, well, where either we have or the critics have criticized him for his outlandish acting.
Yeah,
that's the movies where no one else in the movie is on his wavelength.
Yes, exactly. They're not.
He always does the same thing. He always performs in the same way. But when he is in a movie where no of the other actors are even on the same ballpark, they're trying to do a realistic one-on-one movie of how real people act, then he just feels weird and out of place.
They don't take part in the energy he is giving them.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't work. So it's not actually all his fault.
Oh no, and I don't think. At least I can remember, I don't think we ever really said that he was ever like acting bad. It was just that it felt a little off, maybe. But yeah, that's because the other actors weren't reciprocating. Which is, you know what? That's understandable though, because his style of performing is very unique. I mean, he's basically the only one doing it nowadays. So I can understand that not all actors can work on his wavelength, but it definitely makes it a more enjoyable experience when they do. Not even that they have to act as crazy as he does, but that they can go toe to toe with him and still make it work. That there's a chemistry between them, even though he's very outlandish or whatever.
And there's this other thing with his, again, that he's not an actor, he's a performer.
Yeah.
Is we have talked about that before, that he does a lot of movies. Even at this point in his career, he does a lot of movies.
Yeah.
If you compare with any other actor, sort of. And at this point, he is not in debt at all. He's pretty well off at this point.
Okay.
That it's like the next season of this podcast. That's when he becomes in debt. At this point, this is when he buys the first issue of Superman and builds his fucking pyramid tomb. And
the 90s is when he's like living large. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But,
sure.
But he's always done this many movies. That's because he looks at movies as work, and he is a workaholic. He doesn't look at movies as like art in that way, sort of, because he just, I like to work. I need to work.
And that was something also that the video helped me understand. Like, I understood why he made a lot of movies when he needed to pay his back taxes, but why would he do like at least 2 movies every year back in the 90s when he would just coast? But then he explained it in that video, or I guess in the interview he quoted, like, he just likes working. Yeah.
And I think that's it, at least for me when I see this, because I haven't really watched any interviews with Nicolas Cage. I haven't really read anything from him. It's only speculations and rumors that you hear on the internet.
Yeah, for the most, yeah.
Yeah, so when I just watched these interviews with him and just realized how he talks and how he is, it really, my respect really went up for him. And I already looked up to him quite a bit since we watched so many movies.
Yes, definitely.
At this point, my respect just goes up for every movie.
Yes.
And those interviews really changed a lot of my misconceptions I had about him.
Yeah, it's I felt the same way. But it's still gonna be interesting, Don, to try to figure out why he picked. Admittedly, I haven't seen all of them, but why he picked so many bad movies there about 10 years ago.
They actually talk about that, which is interesting. It feels quite convenient. So I'm not really sure if that's the case, but if it is the case, I it's very understandable. That is that he picked a lot of movies, because if he didn't pick them, they wouldn't be made.
Okay.
Without his name, because he picked a lot of new directors and new writers who would have a shot if they didn't have a big name behind it, and he gave them that shot. That he was like, I'm doing this for you, so you can make your movie, and we'll see if it pans out. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you, so you can have a shot to do it. That he's sort of helping out, because he was this big name, and he knows that if my name is on it, some producer will put money behind this, and I want these people to have a shot in the industry. And I think that sort of explains why he made so many terrible movies, because there was a reason they weren't given a shot, if you would like that.
Yeah, exactly. He was being too nice.
Yeah, but there was this thing of giving the new generation of filmmakers a shot. That he was, and also he, of course, got money and he needed money. Obviously, that was part of it at that point. But that was, and if you look at this part in his career, well, maybe not this, but the last season of the podcast, there was a lot of those there too. That it just happens that those panned out.
Oh yeah, sure, definitely.
Talked about a lot of movies he's made is with actors who hadn't had their breakthrough yet, or directors or writers that only made one movie, and that was that movie.
We talked about that pretty recently. Like, everyone had their big break right after the movie they made with Nicolas Cage. I don't remember what that was, but it was something we watched recently.
I think it was Super 8. think it was.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because James Gandolfini got Sopranos directly after that. Yeah, it was a bunch of those. Yeah. So that makes sense. And another thing I realized after watching that video, or watching part of that video, was that at least I have to do more research for each episode than just watching the movie.
Yeah.
Because there's much more to it, sometimes. Because I do some research, but sometimes there's just nothing there. Like some of the movies talked about in the first season, like Boy in Blue, like there's nothing there if you're looking for it. Like there's no information about the movie.
Yeah. But
I'm thinking like the movies he's making. Well, in this where we are now in the late 90s, the 2000s, there's going to be more information. So I feel like I have to do more research for each episode than what I've done before. Because that video was very well informed.
Yeah.
Kind of put us to shame. This episode is more a review of that video at this point, but still.
Well, there isn't that much to say about Bring Out the Dead. It's a pretty good movie. It's a solid movie. And it's one of those movies where there's nothing more to say more than just praise for it.
Definitely. There is one thing more though, because this kind of started with us talking about his acting. What I do like about him in this movie, in Bringing Out the Dead, is that even though he is the star, he has the main role. He's in basically every scene of the movie. He still kind of takes a backseat to the other actors in the scene. And he's more of an observer, almost like he's like trying to take in what everyone else is saying instead of like putting up what he wants to say. And it makes sense because he's someone that's obviously searching for a way out of his like depression and exhaustion. So a lot of time it's him more reacting to what other actors or the other characters are doing in the movie. And I found that interesting. Just kind of how Scorsese took this guy who just won an Oscar and had just done the three of the biggest like action blockbusters of the 90s, and put him in this really small role where he more reacts than acts. Yeah. That he saw something in Nicolas Cage, obviously, that we realize now that he is like he can really bring something special to a character even when he's not doing much, because he has a way of doing it. So was an interesting choice that I don't think a lot of other people would have done, but Scorsese did it because he saw something in Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage, as always, brought the fucking thunder, even though he didn't do much in the movie.
I watched a video recently about sort of this. It wasn't about Nicolas Cage, but about acting, where they talked about that if you just look up top 10 acting scenes or top 10 performances or something like that, you always only get these people who does this exploding emotions of screaming or having this monologue or things like that. But really, there is at least as much or maybe even more worth in reacting in a good way
definitely
to someone else having this explosive feeling. To just be the person who stands quietly and reacts, and you will get it. And I think Nicolas Cage really does a good job of that in this movie. And,
definitely,
and that's not something everyone can do.
No, and then, that's what I mean. Like he acts without, like, there's so much going on just in his eyes in this movie.
Yeah. And I think another reason this movie really works is because, as we talked about, this movie is not in the realism spectrum. It is sort of a spectrum. It's sort of, but a lot of the characters are very much in the same ballpark of Nicolas Cage's acting. If we look at his partners, they're
larger than life.
Yeah, and I think that's why it also works, because they are on the same wavelength.
Exactly, they reciprocated his energy.
Yeah, even though he didn't really bring any, in his performance, that is.
Yeah, I mean there are moments, and like we said, like I think it's more what he. This is speculating, but what he did between takes, I'm pretty sure, like there was a lot of like bonding between the characters. Because he has very little to do with the other characters in the scenes. They have to have they have to have more chemistry for them to be able to reciprocate the energy he usually lets out. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Which just results in, you have mostly Ving Rhames and Tom Sizemore, but John Goodman to some extent too, like having that big energy that you usually see from Nicolas Cage in a Nicolas Cage movie, which he has from time to time in this movie. But yeah, he's definitely more subdued in this because that fits the character much better. Like we said, he's definitely more internalizing than externalizing, like Tom Sizemore, for example. So it was very interesting to see, and once again proving what a phenomenal, I guess we've already said this, but what a phenomenal fucking actor Nicolas Cage is.
Yeah. So, have you read anything about what people thought about the movie at the time?
No, I haven't actually looked into it other than literally looking at the Metascore, and it's 70 out of 100, so 7 out of 10.
And it's IMDb is 6.8, so by user reviews.
Yeah, so they're pretty much in line with the critics, which is rare. It feels like
very rare.
Yeah. Let's see what it has. I use Letterboxd more and more nowadays. Let's see what it has there. It has an average of 4 out of 5. So it's about 8 out of 10. And that's reviews are definitely they skew more positive and negative. Let's see. It actually has no negative reviews. It has a bunch of positive and some mixed reviews. It has one. Let's double check that. It has 3 10 out of 10 reviews. One from Roger Ebert. He gave it 4 out of 4.
Wait, is it 4 out of 4?
Yeah, he always does because he does the thumbs thing, and it's not 2 thumbs. He has 4 thumbs for some. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, but no, I was more surprised it was a perfect score. That was.
Yeah. He said to look at Bringing Out the Dead, to look indeed at almost any Scorsese film is to be reminded that film can touch us urgently and deeply. That was kind of a bland.
So it's
bland
only because
blurb.
Scorsese made a movie. That's.
Yeah, maybe. But let's see here then. Chicago Tribune as well. 10 out of 10 from Michael Wilmington. Blazes up constantly with a stunning off-kilter brilliance, an incandescent force that sometimes explodes the space between us and the screen. Yeah, once again, I think that's much more talking about the energy in Scorsese's directing, because that sounds like a Scorsese movie. Because it's something we talked a little bit about in the beginning, but this is, the subject matter is not maybe something you would think is a Scorsese movie, but the style and the characters, it is so much like Scorsese. The energy and the music and the characters, the editing, which is not Scorsese, but he always has the same, or almost always has the same editor, Thelma Schoonmaker. It's just so awesome to watch, like the craft that went into making this movie.
Yeah.
And then just I was just thinking about that, like towards the end of the movie when he's after Tom Sizemore beats up Mark Anthony for the second time in the movie.
Yeah.
And he's giving him mouth to mouth, and it's just like here we have not only is the character giving sitting in a dirty, filthy alley in New York, giving mouth to mouth to a man, a drug addict, like insane person who's probably got all kinds of diseases, but he's just he just has to like try to bring him back to life, like he doesn't even care at that point. But then also like that scene, like putting that scene together, I don't know what it was about just that specific scene, because I think it's shot on location even. And it's just he got Nicolas Cage to sit in this filthy alley. Like, I don't know, it's just something about it. Just it made me like appreciate the craft behind it, and like everything. But that one was like really like, oh shit, man, they actually made this movie. And that's what I like about Scorsese movies, like almost more than the script sometimes, like the craft behind it. This script, though, is written by Paul Schrader, someone I have recently started to appreciate more and more after watching some of his movies. He wrote Taxi Driver, of course, but he wrote one of my favorite movies of last year, The Card Counter, and he's done some really, really good scripts in the last few years. So it was interesting to watch this as well. I don't think this was up there with some of his better work, but it's still he has a very interesting, very dark, like angry style of writing that I really, really enjoy. Another movie he made was First Reformed that came out a few years ago, which was also one of my favorite movies in the last few years. So, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I didn't quite understand the movie the first time I watched it, this would almost be like a perfect movie for me. So it's not really the movie's fault, but I'm giving it a lower score because I didn't quite get it.
So, just the user reviews of the movie.
Yeah,
it's very, I'd say it's scattered but positive. A common criticism between a lot of reviews, which I don't really get, is that it's slow and boring.
Okay.
There's too much talking and too little things happening. And I guess, but I think I felt that most every conversation in the movie was sort of, it was either a breather between two intense scenes.
Yeah.
Or they were just talking while walking and while things were happening and going to places.
And it wasn't just talking for talking's sake. Like the characters are being developed in these conversations. Like it's a conversational movie.
Yeah, so I don't really get that criticism, but that's a lot of people giving it. But people who give it that criticism, they give it like a 6 or 7. So it's still a good score.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of 10 out of 10s saying this is a perfect movie. So I mean, it's positive reviews.
I don't agree with that it's a slow movie because goddamn is it frenetic.
I did
frantic,
not feel slow at all.
Yeah, but I can see what some people might mean because it's a 2-hour movie, like 1 hour 55 without the credits. And the first half hour really feels like the intro because it's the first night, and all that really happens in that movie is that they bring in the guy with a heart attack who's been dead for 10 minutes, Mary's father. That's basically what happens, and him walking around the hospital. Like it's almost not real, but it's almost real time, and nothing really progresses. We don't really get to know the characters. I mean, unless you actually pay attention. So I can see that people think it's very slow moving because a third of the movie seems to be just introduction, even though that's not really the case. But if like I said, if you don't pay attention, it would feel like that. So I can understand why some people might think it's slow paced, even though it obviously isn't.
I'm just gonna need to read this one. They didn't even give a score. It's the most tone deaf review I think of the movie. It's the title of the review is Bore.
Oh yeah, I have it in front of me. Yeah.
Okay. This movie is terrible bore. The script was bad. Am I expected to believe that an ambulance man would drive a patient's relative home? Hey, if that did happen, I'm going to complain that is the wrong use of resources. An ambulance is not a taxi. It is used to save lives, not to pick up the girls you like. What is even worse is that I had to endure 2 hours of Cage's expressionless face. That was torture. Avoid this film.
Okay, first of all, Sir Gordon 11, it's the end of the shift, so they're just bringing the ambulance back to the garage anyway. You missed that part, bruh. And also, his face is anything but expressionless. It's so full of torture and anguish and sadness. What are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, some people might, sorry for being elitist, but some people just don't, look at the movie the way you're supposed to.
Well, yeah. So that person, obviously, he went into this movie trying to hate it, obviously.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
he did not even watch the same movie. But this is another one which I can see what he's saying. I don't agree at all, but I can sort of see where he's coming from. The title is Rerun of Taxi Driver. What's happened to Martin Scorsese? As if the remaking of Cape Fear wasn't bad enough. Now he's remaking his own movies. Bringing Out the Dead is basically a rehash of Taxi Driver. A man pushed to the brink by the urban hell of New York. It is well directed, of course, and well lit, but Nicolas Cage and Rosanna Arquette are awful. Disagree. Cage being lousy is no surprise. Disagree. Arquette I expected more from. Despite the fact that they're married in real life, their scenes together are completely blank. No fireworks, no attraction, no nothing.
Oh, disagree. I would say they have great chemistry, but go on, sorry.
Unfortunately, they're together most of the film. The supporting actors are terrific. Ving, Rhames, Mark Anthony, and especially Tom Sizemore. But the movie has been done before. The lead actors are lousy, script predictable. What's the point?
And I see a point in his saying that it's a kind of a rehash of Taxi Driver, because it's by the same, like I said, the same writer, same subject matter, like feeling like the world is going to hell and there's nothing you can do about it. What's different is, I think, the mindset of the main character. One of them, like, desperately trying to help those he can't help, while the other one tries to, like, help those who don't want help. The first one being Bringing Out the Dead, of course. And I think it's once again me speculating. I think it's shows the, like, where the psyche and the emotions of Paul Schrader was at the time. When he wrote them, at least that's what it feels like. Like he's more angry in Taxi Driver, and kind of taking out his frustrations through the character, while he's, I'm thinking, maybe feels hopeless / hopeful when writing Bringing Out the Dead.
Yeah, this movie, there are definitely similarities. They're both in New York. They're both in mostly at night, and it's about a man and madness, sort of. So there are definitely, and a man driving around New York. So there's definitely a lot of similarities. But I think while Taxi Driver is sort of, as you said, angry and sort of explosive and outward acting, that this is what it's. I'm not saying that's what the movie is about, but it's
but the character is that.
Yeah, but sort of this. I want to change things.
Yes.
This world is fucked up, sort of. While this movie is sort of more introspective, that maybe the world isn't fucked up, maybe I am, maybe I need to work on myself, and yeah, sure, the world isn't helping me really with that, but that it's more of a introspective movie.
Yeah, and that's something that comes back in his in other Paul Schrader movies. He made a movie, I think, right after or before Taxi Driver. He made a movie called Hardcore, which is basically like a 70s version of Taken, which is very interesting. It's a very good movie. It's George C. Scott. He lives in, like, the Midwest somewhere, like Illinois or Iowa or somewhere. And his 15-year-old daughter goes on a school trip to Los Angeles, but doesn't come back. So he has to go to Los Angeles to try and find her and get her back, only to realize that she has been, like, basically sex trafficked into the porno industry. So he tries to find her and get her back. And which all has almost that same, like, anger towards the world that Taxi Driver has. And then there's a similar theme in the movie I mentioned, First Reformed, which is about a priest realizing that he befriends an eco-terrorist and realizes that the world is fucked. Which, then he struggles with, like, trying to change the world, just like Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver and George C. Scott in Hardcore, even though that's on a smaller platform, so to speak, just his family. But in that one, instead of, like, going out and shooting or actually, like, infiltrating the porno industry and kind of becoming what he hates, he finds solace in his faith. sort of spoiling that movie. Sorry, because I think you should watch it. It's a great fucking movie. So it's something that comes back, like the pointless pursuit of trying to change the world and instead finding another purpose is something that definitely comes back to in a lot of his movies. I haven't seen all of his movies, but at least the ones I've seen has that common thread through them. That's what I think is very, very interesting about him as a writer.
Yeah.
That there's this through line, and you can see him the various stages of his life in his writing.
So yeah, I mean that's sort of what people say, and then there, I guess I said a lot of 10 out of 10s, which is
obvious. Yeah.
It's a great movie. A lot of people saying this is Scorsese's most underrated movie, and I would sort of agree with that.
It's up there. I would say Silence, but yeah, this is up there.
I haven't seen that one, so
okay.
But yeah, so all in all, good movie. Go watch it.
Good movie, definitely.
Maybe not for fun, but if you want to see a good movie.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it's one that a lot of people haven't seen because it's a kind of a forgotten Scorsese movie. So check it out, especially if you like Scorsese.
What would you give it for score?
I gave it before this once again on Letterboxd. I gave it a 7 or a 3.5 out of 5, 7 out of 10. But now after having discussed it, I'm gonna bump it up to an 8. I'm gonna have to change my score on Letterboxd because it makes more sense now.
Same here, 8 for me too. It's not a great movie, but it's
well, it's great, but it's not amazing.
It's a great movie, but it's not a perfect movie. It's not a masterpiece.
Exactly.
But it's a great movie. So yeah, that's Bringing Out the Dead.
Yes.
And next week we're gonna watch the classic movie that nobody rewatched, but everyone remembers. Gone in 60 Seconds.
Ah, yes. Yeah, I saw that in the theaters.
Oh,
and
you
I
did?
haven't seen it since.
Yeah. But you remember it was good, right?
I remember liking it then, but I was 10, so sure, yeah.
It's one of those movies where everyone I talk to, when I've talked to people that have done this podcast, that's one of the movies that usually get mentioned. Oh, Gone in 60 Seconds. I remember that's a good movie.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's a few people have said that, and I remember that. That was a good movie. I don't remember what's happening in it, but I remember it was good.
Well, so we'll see. Same here, I suppose, but it's been 20 years, so.
Yeah, so, and that's the first movie we're gonna do in the 2000. Super 8 and Bringing Out the Dead was 99, and now the noughties.
Yeah, he's doing Gone in 60 Seconds and The Family Man, which is another one I haven't seen before.
So yeah.
It'll be interesting to revisit that movie. It's
yeah, especially now when Fast and Furious has become such a staple in the film industry.
Yeah, and I'm an unironic super fan of the Fast and Furious movie. So this is kind of a I guess it's a year before. So I guess it's like a proto Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I remember these two movies. They were sort of bunched together because I remember they sold double feature DVDs with both movies.
Okay, well that makes sense.
Because it's like action movies with cars or car thieves. Well, they're not thieves in Fast and Furious, are they?
They steal other things, but they do steal cars, but they're thieves in general, criminals.
Yeah, but criminals with fast, cool cars.
Exactly.
So yeah, we'll see if it's as good as we remember. I doubt it.
I'm just looking at the score, and not a great score, unfortunately.
I think it's gonna be fun, but not more than that.
I think so too. Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna say. So yeah, any last words?
No, not more than thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out Gone in 60 Seconds if you want to follow along in the conversation next week. Also, if you want to listen to all these episodes in advance, check us out on patreon.com/don'tmakeascene. And for just $3 a month, you get every episode way in advance. You also get exclusive episodes of my other podcast, monthly commentary tracks, a bunch of other fun stuff. And you also support us in our independent podcast endeavors. But other than that, just check us out. Check out all the other episodes if you haven't already. We're available on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. and tell your friends. But other than that, thank you for listening, and until next time, have a good one. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Madness in the Method is part of the Please Don't Make a Scene podcast network. It is produced and directed by Tobias Vedén after a concept by Christopher Billén. It is hosted by Tobias Vedén and Christopher Billén. Executive producer is Annika Vedén. If you want to be a supporter of the show, please check us out on patreon.com/don'tmakeascene, where you can get early access to episodes, exclusive episodes of other podcasts, commentary tracks, and much, much more. And we want to give a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters: Laura Kinney, Rasmus Jonsson, Mom,